In this short series of videos, I will be showcasing how to create or how to begin to create a marquee like this for an app or for a website. For this project, I will be using first HTML5. So what am I trying to create here? Well, let's replay this and see what this is. So basically, this is just a marquee for, like I said, a website or for an app. And it has interactivity into it, which is these are buttons, and when I roll over them, you see the buttons change in state. And then if I click on one of them, basically you go to a sub area of that marquee where you will have information about the product, a button to go and purchase the product if you like it, and then a button to close that marquee and then go back to the top level navigation. Along with that, you'll notice that there's some animation when the items come in, and then this little bouncy text called My Shop on the upper right-hand corner. There it is. So we have some elements of principles of animation into this. One of these is follow through with this one, and then you also have it when you come into this one. You have that elasticity, which gives you the principle of squash and stretch, or also the principle of anticipation, depending on how you see it. In order to change these animations and make them more elastic, we also are implementing slow in and slow out, which is also a principle of animation. In our case, in interactive media, it's called ECEs in or ECEs out, depending on what you're choosing. So with that said, let's go ahead and try to get started. So first things first, I already have a lot of the assets for this already set up in Animate. These are images that are brought in from Photoshop. And so I'm going to make use of those to make our workflow a little faster. Before we do any of this, before you start any project, you would have some sort of diagram or a flowchart that will help you break down the problem into smaller problems. So that way you have a guide as to what comes next within your workflow. For that, I used an online program found at app.diagrams.net, and it's a free flowchart creator that you can use for your projects, and you can export from this into a PDF or into different file formats for your personal use. So you will have a couple of projects to produce this semester, which you will need to create flowcharts for. So this would be a good program, app.diagrams.net. If you don't like to use this program, you can always create these boxes and all these arrows in Illustrator if you have access to it. So it's completely up to you. So this is what the flowchart for that marquee that you just saw a second ago. Let me replay this, and basically this starts by having an animation. Then the animation, basically you're now in a navigational area, and then it's waiting for you to do something, whether you want to roll over it, roll over any of the buttons, and if you're hovering over the whole thing, then if you roll over one of the buttons, then are you clicking on it? And if not, then what are you doing? Well, I'm still hovering. So basically that is the workflow. We start with start, then there's an animation, then it's telling us, are you hovering? And if we say, yes, we're hovering, then it's going to ask us, okay, so are you clicking on something? No, I'm not clicking yet. Then go back to hovering still. Are you still hovering? Yes. Are you clicking now? The answer will be at this point, yes, I'm clicking. So it'll tell you which one of the buttons are you clicking, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Then I'll say, I'm clicking on button 1. Then button 1 does a process. It creates an animation for you. It provides you with information. That is the process, and then it's going to tell you, okay, now you're looking at this. Now that you're done looking at this, are you clicking on the buy button? No, I'm not clicking on the buy button. Okay, so what are you doing? Are you clicking on the close button? No, I'm not clicking on that. Then you're hovering. So you go back again to say, are you clicking on the buy button? No, I'm not clicking on the buy button. Okay, are you clicking on the close button? Yes, I am. So when you click on that, then the flowchart will take you back to where the navigation is. Okay, so that is the basic workflow of this marquee. So let's take a look at that in our flowchart. So in the flowchart, we start. And then it says, okay, so you have the button navigation animations. So you're looking at those animations, and then it's going to ask you, are you hovering over the buttons? If the answer is yes, then you're going to say, okay, did you click on a button? No, so this arrow is actually wrong. This arrow should be here. My apologies for that. Let me fix that. Actually, this shows you how easy it is to work with this program. So I'll say, okay, are you hovering over the buttons? Yes. Okay, did you click on, and by the way, Start points are the ones that have the rounded corners. That is the beginning and end of the program. You also have rectangles. These rectangles indicate processes, things that are happening. The rhombus or the diamond shapes indicate a decision-making point, basically an if statement. And in this case, it's asking you, are you? If you are hovering over the buttons, then what? Then you say, did you click on a button? You'll say, no, I didn't click on a button. Then you can go back to hovering over the buttons. Okay? So that is what this arrow does here. This arrow, we don't need this arrow here. Let me go back, sorry. I actually made a mistake. This was in the right place a second ago. It should be here. I'll show you why in just a second. Let me undo actually. Undo, 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 undo. There we go. So saying, are you hovering over the buttons? No, I'm not. Okay, so go back to the animation. That means you're not hovering over the buttons yet. Are you hovering over the buttons? That means, are the buttons there yet? And you say, yes, I am. So that's what this arrow pointing down will tell you. Okay, so now that you're hovering over the buttons, did you click a button? No, I haven't clicked anything. So you're basically on this loop right here. The program is still waiting, and it's going to ask you again, did you click again? Are you hovering? Yes, I am. Did you click on the buttons? Yes, I clicked. Which button do you click? Button 1, button 2, button 3, or button 4? Well, let's say I click on button 1. Then the process at that point is go to and stop frame. Basically, it's going to say go to a specific frame where the Mark 1 animation is housed. So basically, I'm going to be jumping. When I click on each button, I'm going to be jumping to different frames. And I'm going to be calling those frames Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and Mark 4. So it's going to then get to that frame, and it's going to say, okay, I will play the animation in that frame, in any of the frames that I land. Then when the animation is played, then it's going to say, okay, did you click on the Buy Now button? If you say yes, then it's going to point out to another process, which is go to an e-store, go somewhere to a website, and then it points to the e-store. If you say, no, I didn't click on that button, then it's going to ask you, did you click on the close button? And you're going to say, no, I haven't clicked on it yet. Then it's going to say, did you click on the Buy Now button? No, I haven't. So that means go back to this one and says, did you click on the close button? You say, yes, I did. So that means close the mark animation and go back to, are you hovering over the buttons? So you see, basically, this is detailing all the interactions that the persona or the user is going to be having with your application or with your presentation or whatever this ends up being, the interactive piece that you are creating. So this is a fairly simple workflow, and it's a very simple flowchart for it as well. The thing that is takeaways from this workflow is that basically every time you have a decision, you only have two possibilities for yes or no answers. The decision points are yes or no points. So in this case, are you hovering over the buttons? No. That means you're probably watching the animation. So that would be the no. And if you say, yes, I am hovering over the buttons, then it's going to ask you, did you click on a button? No, I'm not clicking on a button yet. Then I go back to hovering over the buttons. Did you click over a button? Yes. And then it tells you which button do you click on. And then you choose your flow for the particular interaction that you're coding at that point. So that's what a flowchart does for you. A flowchart basically helps you break down first the flow of the presentation or the animation or the interactivity of your program. That's the first thing. The second thing it does is it starts helping you to identify where things, how things will be interacting with one another. And that gives you an opportunity to start naming things according to what you will be using, the naming convention you will be using in production. This is the point where you start creating those names. So for example, by looking at this, I know now that each button will be called BTN1, BTN2, BTN3, BTN4, depending on which button I am working on. And then the movie clips that they point to will be called Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4. So that is helpful for me because now I have a visual reference as to the naming convention I will be using. Then also down here, it says that you click on the Buy Now button. That is that button that will be on every one of the clips to go to the e-store. Or did you click on the Close button? That's another button, another name that I will be using within my production phase. So this flowcharting, creating this flowchart basically helps you because now you have this document as a reference. One, for you as the production artist or as the developer. Second, for your client because they can see and you can walk them through how the different scenarios are going to happen within your application or presentation or the interactive piece that you're creating. And 3, for the development team, because now they can actually see what you had envisioned as part of this interactive piece. So flowcharts are a must every time you have interactivity. This is fairly straightforward. Like I said, this is very, very simple. For big applications or for game design or things like that, you get much larger flowcharts where you will have more decision-making points, and it can get really complicated. Now, you don't have to rush to get everything into one single flowchart. You could have several flowcharts connecting, and then you would have an arrow that points to the next process. All of these things, basically, the point of the flowchart is to encompass pieces of the program that you can break down into smaller pieces to make your life less complicated. An example of a little bit more robust flowchart is this quick flowchart that I created for Pac-Man. So, and again, this is a simplified version of what the actual flowchart is or was when they created the program. As you can see, I start and then I'm moving left, right, up, or down. That's the process. Did I hit a pellet? Yes. Is it a power pellet? Yes. Power up Pac-Man, chase ghosts. Are you chasing ghosts? No, I'm not. So start moving left and right. Did you hit a pellet? Yes. Was it a power pellet? No. Is there a fruit or a pretzel? So you see how this basically all of the different scenarios. If I ate a pellet and it was a power pellet and it was yes and I'm chasing the ghosts, then I eat the ghosts, change the score, and go back to moving left and right and up or down. Did I eat a pellet? No, I didn't. Did I eat a fruit? No, I didn't. Is there a wall? Yes, there is a wall. Then start moving again left and right. And so you can see how the different workflows and scenarios become clear to you and to your client and to any developer that is looking at this. So next, in the next video, I'm going to jump in and actually start using our flowchart for the marquee to recreate that in Animate.